changes, so you'll see some different language in there as to how and why these were created. The responsibilities that owners have, the responsibilities that the town have, and termination, how terminations can happen.
So why don't we give everybody a chance on the committee to review them and then pick it up at the next meeting?
Yeah.
So, just to be clear, what is it that we're
Well,
hoping,
for instance, Jean-Paul, Masonic for sale, and we have one of these agreements there. If it sells, they can choose to terminate or continue on. But we'd be in a better position as a town if all these were converted into easements eventually, because
Yeah.
otherwise we always run the risk, because also community pharmacies for sale.
Oh,
And we
cool.
have a similar agreement there, and that could be altered.
Mhm.
So that's does that answer your question?
yeah, right.
So, item 3, discuss action of proposed marketing plan recommendations for 2021. Rich?
So when you and I last spoke, because our meeting was canceled in June, we didn't want to hold off marketing efforts till July. We spoke, and then I was going on vacation, so I was like, well, it doesn't make sense for me to send out a request for to the marketing and then be on vacation and not here to answer questions or anything, so that's going out tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. That's it for that?
That's it for that. The council approved unanimously the funds for, and we'll just have to bring forward as the requests come through. That's the website, that's brochures, that's marketing tagline and logo and a retainer.
What's the budget?
30,000.
Anybody have any questions or comments?
I have a
They-
question.
Yeah, Meg, could you come up
Sorry,
here?
The brochures that you mentioned are for what year? And is it for this year or next year? The
It-
brochures you mentioned?
It's in this year's budget, and it will be once the marketing of the brand and the logo are done.
Oh, so it's for
So,
next year?
In essence.
in essence, for this fiscal year,
Okay.
most likely next,
Next season?
yes, next season.
Okay. Thank you.
Have you thought, are you trying to get that all from one source?
The recommendation that came in the marketing plan was to hire a firm on a retainer. Now, it did not say we had to hire the same firm. We have a local firm in town that has expressed interest on a couple different occasions. We have the same firm, and then there was one of the other firms who was neck and neck with Design Lab that we thought that we'd send it to those 3 firms. So that way we'd have that competitive.
For all apart?
For the retainer they would basically get everything for this year. Or if this committee says, no, we'd like to take it on a case by case, we can do that. But
I mean, first we're going to have a logo. And
yeah, it makes sense for the people who are doing the logo to do the town tagline.
Right,
as
but
well.
you might be able to split it up. I mean, you
Yeah.
might be able to get somebody to do the website separate from
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
because they're probably gonna farm it out anyway.
Yeah.
I would assume.
Any other comments? Item 4, Community Economic Development Director, request for board members standing update.
I would like to ask the committee to consider John Wardwell as a member emeritus. His contributions to the town of Bucksport, and particularly to this committee, and the economic impact that he has had, personally as well as with his business. He's not able to attend meetings, but I hate to not recognize him with that status. I'm not even sure if even that he'd still be able to come to these meetings, but I think it'd be a good gesture on behalf of this committee to extend that to him. I've received 2 applications for people to join this committee. One is Meg Kay. Her application came in first, and then Paula Keys came in while I was on vacation. So what I'd like to do is sooner rather than later, but I'm not sure on the policy if we can nominate one of them tonight or not, because it's not on the agenda. I know the council has different rules that they can go by, but I'd like to get it to the council so that they can get that person on this committee as soon as possible.
Could we suspend the rules to take it up?
To take it up, so
It's not on the agenda.
if someone would like to request to take up an item that's not on the agenda.
Okay. The other question I have is are we limited to the number of people on the committee?
Is it 10?
No more than 10, I believe, is how it's worded.
And there are, how many now?
10.
It's 10.
Yes, and I think we need to revisit that as well, and we do have a question, because it does, the town code does say that someone from the Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber of Commerce no longer exists.
Go ahead, Revenue.
It's really difficult to hear you. I don't know if you are using your microphones or not, but we're missing stuff here. And it's really important as citizens that we hear the discussion. And so are the microphones on? And if so, are you going to use them? If not, why aren't they on?
The microphones are for TV purposes and internet only. We can project louder, though.
Well, then I would request, with all due respect, Mr. Chair, that you would do that.
Certainly.
Because some of us struggle with hearing issues. It's really important we're here because we care about what's going on in this meeting.
Okay. So back to your motion, Kathy?
Okay, I made a motion to take up an item not on the agenda. And
I second.
and
Okay.
Robbie seconded it, so we need a vote.
So what has happened is Kathy has taken up an item that is not on the agenda, which is to make John Wardwell an emeritus board member, which will give him no voting rights, but he will still be on the board, and to appoint a second member, which will have to go to the town council. Rob Carmichael has seconded that motion.
Thank you for repeating what's going on. It's helpful as you proceed.
Yes, and I apologize. So I think we need to take a vote right now.
All in favor?
Well, can we have some discussion?
Sure we can.
Sure, yes.
Go ahead.
All right. So, and I think I'm not sure, but I think you started to address this. We have 10 members. As long as I've been on this committee, there's some members I've never seen at a meeting. So what is our charter? How does it deal with that, or does it at all?
It does not at all. I know Mr. Wardwell fell ill quite
Yeah,
some time ago, so
I
he hasn't.
understand
Yep. And then Mr. Dunbar's here. Mr. Morrison is a counselor. I don't know how the council handles that. And Mr. Boothby, I had a conversation with him about the importance of today and why he couldn't be here. And Dick Peterson said he'd be here in 10 minutes. He was on a roof, going to come down. So, but to answer your question, we don't have anything in our guidelines that says a member is disqualified or expelled for not attending X number of meetings. This is to the best of my understanding, this is the only quasi-committee, meaning there are 3 town council members, like any town council committee, but this also has public members on the board as well. It's the only committee set up this way, and that's why it's part of a struggle for getting a quorum, because council rules are 2 out of 3 councilors, but other committee rules are more than 50%.
Can we look at changing the number, Rich?
Yes.
You know, maybe go to 12 or something, so there's a better chance of having a quorum on a consistent basis.
We can take up any changes at the next meeting if the committee so chooses.
Okay. Go ahead, Mayor.
Just a very simple question. Why would somebody sign up for this committee and then never show up?
Can't answer that.
Yeah.
Just wondered.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll retract my statement because I thought there was someone on the committee who isn't. So, I thought that at one time was Osborne.
Yes.
Years ago.
Yes.
Oh, years ago. That's why he never been here. So, of all the members, I've seen every one of these at some meeting. Now, maybe they're not at every meeting. I'm not at every meeting, so.
Well, I just know that some of us came to some meetings and there wasn't enough for quorum,
Yeah.
so I was just.
But perhaps we take it up at the next meeting to look at changing the number as well. Any other discussion? Okay. So we had
So the
a
vote was on change.
Emeritus.
Emeritus, yeah.
Yeah. So we have nominating John Wardwell for emeritus status on the Economic Development Committee. All in favor? All opposed?
And based, I would like to also have the board make a recommendation to appoint Meg Kay, since we did receive her application first and I did not see any issues. Meg is a business owner on Main Street. She lives here in Bucksport on Main Street. And I'd like it if this committee can take that up. Like I said, the other person is Paula Key, and Paula Key, as you know, served on Wednesdays on Main, lives in Bucksport with her husband David. And that's the two. My recommendation is Meg, simply because Meg's application came in first. But it's the council, this committee's pleasure of who,
So we're making a recommendation to the council.
for the August 26th meeting.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay, so the motion's on the floor to appoint Meg, for this committee's recommendation to appoint Meg Hay, and Ron Russell has seconded that motion.
Mr. Chair, point of clarification. By moving Mr. Wardwell to an emeritus status, I was thinking, and I'm not sure, maybe I missed something in the communication, does that not mean there are 2 seats vacant at the moment? Or is it the Wardwell seat that's being filled now?
Just the Wardwell seat.
And so then it is further, if I may, Mr. Chair, the intention of this committee to check in with whom about adding the size to the committee? What is that protocol, please?
We have to go to make a recommendation to the council, and then the council would change the rules.
All right, I would, if I may, hope that you would expand, because the last 2 meetings were without a quorum, and those of us who make an effort to show up find that somewhat disheartening. And I think you want more participation from citizenry, not less. So if it takes increasing your numbers from 10 to 12, it would seem that would be fine. I thank you for listening.
Certainly. So we had a motion and we had a second. So all in favor of nominating Meg Kay, or recommending? All opposed?
Sorry I'm late. Oh, there's a chair. Thanks. It was on the roof.
One today.
I had them in the calendar, but I just got carried away.
Okay, so what will happen from here? This committee has made a recommendation to nominate to the town council for Meg Kay's appointment to this committee, and that will be sent to the town manager to have that on the council agenda. Does the council still have an appointments committee? I'm hoping that's not another meeting that has to
It's
happen.
called the Service Committee now.
Service committee. It's possible this might have to go to the service committee,
But that could be done.
but that could be done at the first meeting in September, which would be prior to this meeting. So I'll get clarification from the town manager tomorrow.
Yeah, we could do a service before the 26th.
Oh, yes.
All right, so
I think maybe there's maybe a favor to make a motion to the town council that we expand the committee to 12.
we did we have a second on that?
I'm not sure anybody made a
No, we
motion,
haven't
but
made
I
a
would
motion.
make a motion that we expand it.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any further discussion?
How many are on now?
10 are on now, Dick. What we just did, so to bring up speed, was we made John Wardwell, we recommended making John Wardwell emeritus,
Yep.
and adding Meg Kay, and then expanding to 12 to try to ensure we have a quorum.
12, not 11. Just a case of an odd number. That's all.
I think an odd number would be easier because I get stuck with that 50%, but it's the pleasure of this committee of what you would like.
It's a good point.
It is.
Chances of getting 11 people here together, or even 12, I think is probably pretty remote, but, I mean, you know, it makes sense to have an odd number, I guess, at some point.
Do you want to revise that motion, Ron? Do you have an
To
opinion?
11?
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah, I would revise it, that we recommend to the town council that we expand to 11 members.
Okay. Any other comments?
What was the revision?
We revised from making the recommendation of 12 members on the committee to 11 to have an odd number in case there's a vote.
As opposed to 13?
Lucky number.
I think the more citizen input you get, the better, Mr. Chair.
I don't disagree.
And I don't see any value of going down, I see a value in going up.
We're still going up from 10 to 11.
Right.
So it's still going up. And people are gonna be here. I'm not here, I came in late, all right? So I'm not here to say we shouldn't be 21. I'm just an odd number. And I know it's difficult to get people to show up for these meetings anyway. Look at me, I mean, I'm late.
Yeah.
But, you know, show up for these meetings, and they're important meetings. So I think too many is not really in the best interest as you move forward. I think you try to keep it to a core group and then work from the core group. But that's my thoughts.
Anyone else?
I think the committee gets too big in the event that a number show up, you know, more show up, it makes work more difficult.
That's the only thing, it's good intentions, but the more
Exactly.
people you have, the more people you have to bring up to speed if they're not all fully engaged. So you constantly, I've done a lot of group work, and I know that's part of,
That's exactly
part of it. We're all guilty of not being able to make meetings at times, but.
No, it's a good question.
We have a question.
Oh,
about-
sorry.
It was just a question, it was not a recommendation, I'm just asking what's the thinking about going to 11 as opposed to 13? You've satisfied me, I'm okay with it, I'm just asking, okay?
Fair enough.
Nope.
So we have a motion, revised motion at 11.
11.
Second.
Do we have a second? All in favor? Opposed?
So, how would you like to have the 11 acted on by the council first, and then bring that next name forward to the next meeting?
Yes, I think that would be appropriate.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And another question, have we gotten to any, if there are people, new people that want to come on board, and there's interest, maybe if there's a time where you go around to the people that are already on the committee and say, hey, do you want to stay engaged, do you want to be, or do you want to let somebody else come on board and try it?
Yeah, good point.
Maybe that's something we could do annually or whatever.
Yeah,
I would agree.
I think we did that 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to COVID, we went through existing board members. That Butch Osborne, for example, was on it. There were folks who weren't coming to any meetings from the time I started for the first few years. So we went to those people and asked if they wanted to remain on the committee. So we've added Dick, we've added Rob, Ron. So we've made changes and gotten some new people on the committee, and we'll continue to, at the committee's request, continue to do that.
So item 5, new business, board or public? Anything from the public?
I just wanted to get an update from Rich about the EV chargers. There's been a lot of people hassling me, and know the couple here in town, Ralph Chapman and Beck Poole. They just purchased their first electric vehicle, 2022 Bolt, and then there's another family that's buying a Volkswagen ID4 here in the next few weeks. So I was wondering if I can get an update by any chance.
You can, and I don't mean to be rude, I'm trying to bring up that email. So if this committee's not aware, I applied on behalf of the town for a grant to to acquire 2 more electric vehicle charging stations. We were successful in that grant. The 2 charging stations will be down on the waterfront by the public restroom building at the town dock. It was through a Climate to Thrive. A Climate to Thrive is where the grant came from. We got up to $5,000. With the cost of the 2 charging stations and the electrician, the cost came in under what the grant amount is, so the town does not have to incur any charges for having that in. The town council has requested that the public pay for the use of that charger, which is different than the charger that currently resides at PowerWise. So the response I got was that Mr. Beck had a lengthy delay, but he's getting underway with the order of these. He wanted the contact information for the electrician, which I provided him. So it's going. Chargers are on backlog, so he expects it to be a month or longer before those even get here.
So, what are you saying, time-frame-wise?
I'm saying that they won't be here until they come in, as in the supply chain all over this country. There's no supply, so as of right now, the earliest would be September.
There's been a lot of demand for electric car chargers, and I just want to say thank you to America for embracing the electric car thing, because I've been so busy with my group. We have over 202 people now, including a guy that owns an electric car company down in southern Maine, a guy named Martin Groman who owns E2 Tech in Augusta, a YouTube personality named Brandon Flash, and a lot of people are embracing electric cars, and it's pretty cool. So,
What's the cost, if you don't mind? I didn't mean to interrupt you, Steve.
For the public to use them?
Yeah, but for the public to use, since there's a charge, I guess, from what I heard.
Yes.
I can't remember what the fee was.
$1.50 comes to mind.
$1.50 to charge your car.
Per hour, I believe. I believe it's on a per hour.
Okay.
Because there were 2 options. Either the town could be responsible to pay for it, or the public. And the council made it clear that they wanted the public to pay for it. We can monitor the amount of usage through the apps that they have, and then the town can relook at when this grant expires if they're getting enough use to warrant the loss of 2 very high-profile parking spots on the waterfront.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because you said the grant covers more than...
The cost, more than the cost. The cost.
And what was the difference?
Hundreds of dollars.
Well, I was just thinking that $100 could have been applied as an offset.
I don't think it could in that instance. It had to be for the charges and the electrician.
I'm just
and
thinking
the
Steve's
signage.
doing a lot of work here
Yep.
and trying to get these things out. And even though I may not have an electric car in my lifetime, I'm not sure yet.
Right.
Hybrid, yes. Electric, all told, I'm not sure yet. But it's a great idea, and keep moving forward.
Well, as I've always said, the future is electric. By next year, there's going to be a lot more electric semi-trucks. Pickup trucks are going to be electric. Snowmobiles, motorcycles. And if we don't do something, I mean, eventually we're going to run out of federal oil. I mean, it's very thin supply of oil. And that's pretty much why there's a lot of people that are not drilling oil fields because they catch on fire. So we got to think environmental. I'd rather go electric than pay for gas any day. And it's so much cleaner. It makes the air so much more breathable. When we had that big pandemic quarantine, I was walking through town and I couldn't believe how clear the air was, how much better things were. My nose actually cleared up. My allergies were not overacting and everything, and my throat was not, obviously projecting what I usually do. If we can get everybody electric, or plug-in hybrid, you would see a lot more people breathing easy, especially with asthma and breathing-related disabilities. So, just thought I'd give you that little stat. Sorry.
Okay.
Does
Anything else?
anyone else from the public have anything?
I'm assuming, Rick, these are not the quick chargers?
These are not, so it'll be on one station, 2 plugs.
Right, but it's not the
It's not the,
super.
no. No, they're the phase two
Yeah, around that, right?
is the name of what they are.
So that would give everybody a chance to go grocery shopping or go to a restaurant, go shopping for their loved ones during Christmas and stuff. So, while they're charging their car, you can go and eat food or check out a store.
All right.
Anyone from the board?
On new items? or-
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of questions. I know I probably missed something that was in the enterprise or was mentioned about the salmon farm. What the latest was that we don't really have anything new, that they're still evaluating options? Is that,
The question is about the salmon farm and an update for the salmon farm. The town manager has reached out to her contact with no response as of yet. I'm going to reach out to I had a conversation with the town manager prior to her leaving tonight, and she has not had that update. So I'm going to reach out to my source tomorrow for an update.
I get questions out of town, I'm sure other people do,
Yes,
what's going
lots
on.
of
and
Yeah.
I was gonna
you
ask them at
guys,
the next
so-
council meeting. That's good.
The second question is, I've had a couple of people ask me about signage on the waterfront. I think that's not a new issue. And I understand there's some sort of interpretation of the law and what can go down there. Could you update us on that piece of it, Rich?
Yes. So regarding signage on the waterfront, I believe that came up at this committee at the last meeting that we were actually able to hold back in March. I think it was virtually even. So when you go, Maine has a billboard law, and you can't. It's against Maine law to promote a business not on its property or, for example, in the industrial park. You can have a sign like that at the beginning of your park, but you can't have, for example, a dairy port sign that's not a DOT sign. Those blue signs that you see, you can't have a sign or a banner that promotes the dairy port. What we can do on the waterfront is we can have for example, we can have a map of the downtown district that has streets, and there's a number, and associated with the number is a chart to the left. So if number 1 is the Bucksport Enterprise, right over at its location on Main Street, on this map you'll see a number 1 and then Bucksport Enterprise. And if for some reason the Bucksport Enterprise changed its name to a Wicked Good Read, very simply, you can leave the number 1 and the location, peel off the sticker, and put a Wicked Good Read there for the business. We had those. The simple fix would have been to use what was had, but the Chamber of Commerce discarded those old signs that we had.
Is there, maybe Kathy can help with this, is there any, it seems a stretch to some of these, because I know I've been to towns where there are signs on the waterfront or signs on the walkway that point to different places or different businesses. Is there anything that we might be able to bring up on the state level? That seems like a broad interpretation of a billboard, to have maybe a tree stand with signs pointing to, different businesses in town.
I can search through the Department of Transportation.
Yeah, that's where you would find that. Yeah. It's off-premise marketing is what it's called.
Okay.
And what happened was a few years ago, actually I think it started here in this town, the farmers market wanted to have its sign up year-round, and code says you can't. So code and economic development working, our economic development director went to Augusta and got that, helped to get that law passed, and that law was has since then been revoked. So it's a touchy subject. I think the one you might all be familiar with now is the one about the lobster fishermen and the right whales that are going out. And it's big. Billboards and off-premise marketing signs are big to do in Augusta. It seems like they're always taking it up. Because the problem is when these laws sometimes get written, it has negative consequences. So, for example, when the farmers market law, when that was changed, it also made it so that people who were running for city government, town government, for the state, it also expanded the length of time that those signs could be out. So those signs were actually eligible to be out for 6 months, and people didn't want to see that. So the law was retracted. So there's a lot of, when these laws get written, more attention to detail. But the off-premise marketing, like I said, you can do it with the sign and the number, and we've done that as a community in the past, and we can absolutely do that again. I actually have a, I was going to print it off tonight. I got it this afternoon. I actually have an example of one that was used for the, when the tall ship was in town, a map that was created for that, listing all the businesses on Main Street.
The last thing is, and I'm thinking is probably a dead issue, is the whole issue of closing Main Street at any point in time for festivals or anything like that. I saw that, I think somebody had requested. Is that shot down for any time at any point in the future? The reason I ask, some of us go back to the late 70s when we had something like 8,000 to 10,000 people come through town on a festival day. I think it was the 4th of July, actually. I think I was a senior in college. Shut down Main Street and had 8,000 to 10,000 people in here for a festival. And it was a boon to the people, the stores, the businesses, the charities, kind of like the Yarmouth Clam Festival on a small scale. And I just, I hope maybe we consider something like that down the road.
Was that specific to the
So,
organization?
yeah, so the question that's brought up is the thought of closing down Main Street, and if I could paraphrase, for certain events.
It's just a limited time.
For a limited time. So the ultimate decision comes down to public safety if Main Street's going to be closed down. And what they require of the organizations are two things. One is that the business owners are on board, because there are some business owners who do not like when Main Street is closed down. It's detrimental to their business. And the second is there is no, as of now, the way that it's been going, is there's no charge to the organization for police coverage, for extra coverage that has to be provided. So it's not budgeted in advance for these events. So I believe the event you're referring to is Vendor Bender by Bucksport Bay Business Coalition, and they wanted to shut down Main Street from I want to say Elm Street, Mechanic Street to Central Street, because a lot of the restaurants here on Main Street are closed on Mondays, and they wanted to have food vendors and retail vendors in their trucks. And the recommendation from public safety was it was supposed to be every other Monday excluding holidays. So the cost for the extra public safety made it cost prohibitive for the organization to do it, and was suggested to do the event on the waterfront. Now, the Elm Street Congregational Church, which is just off of Main Street, has offered the use of their parking lot for economic and community development tools, and had I not been on vacation when that was forwarded, I would have mentioned it to Terry to check with Reverend York about the use of that parking lot, because yes, it's not on Main Street, but it's a stone throw away, and it also brings folks to the businesses that are on those side streets as well. So, Reverend York has.
We are in the business district, as I understand it. I don't know if that was a council decision at one point or another. But the Elm Street Congregational Church, and why I'm sitting here tonight, is because we want Bucksport to prosper. And so as the religious leader of that church, I'm here to find out, what we can do to be helpful. Because we are the oldest church in town, and there's a lot of good things that I think are beginning to happen out of that property. And yes, if there are community events For example, when it was Jonathan Buck's 300th birthday, you may recall Main Street Bucksport sponsored a birthday bash, and it was held in the parking lot. And we also gave, at that time, we had people who could take tours of the meeting house, and, you know, there was people that tell the history. And so I think that that's a really critical piece, because, you know, the church is committed to helping this community prosper. And that's not just religiously, but more importantly, in this instance, economically, and, you know, all of that. So I just want to point that out. And I have been told, Mr. Carmichael, that in history in this town back in the 70s about the Joyous Festival that went on, and I guess it was a day long perhaps or something. And I think that's very different than trying to shut the town down every other week or whatever the other proposal was. But it would seem to me, and I hear you say that the business owners need to buy in, but I would be hard pressed to think that business owners in this town would not welcome 8,000 to 10,000 people descending on the 4th of July, you know, for some kind of event. I mean, to me, it seems like a rational plan, and I hope that whoever needs to get this through, whether it's the council or whatever, that, you know, this concept of a limited time festival, you know, such as the 4th of July or whatever date is picked, would be considered as a rational way to boost Main Street. And if businesses don't choose to be open or whatever, there are alternatives. But, you know, we've got a lot to offer. And I'm frankly sick and tired of seeing people turn right and not left when it comes to the stoplight over there. So I think whatever we can do, even if it's going back to the 70s, Mr. Carmichael, I think we need to look at it and say that was good then, maybe it will work now. And, you know, enough said.
Don?
Two issues that were raised to me by the chief and the deputy chief was not that they were opposed to an event. If the event is sanctioned by the town and it's a one-off deal, but they did have a problem with it being every 2 weeks, and secondly, because in the past they closed the street for town functions and not for profit functions. They were being asked to do it for a for-profit. They had a problem with that.
And that's what brought this all to mind when I read that, was thinking back to, you know, this was something that I believe, if I remember correctly, benefited the businesses. It was a limited time period on the 4th of July. Businesses that wanted to stay open stayed open. The ice cream parlor, for some reason, wasn't open that day. I remember, but there were nonprofits that had booths along, and so they were able to raise money. The businesses were able to be open and take patrons that came in, and it just brought a lot of people into town. Maybe it couldn't happen again, but if we're closed, and it sounds like we're not closed to the idea of maybe a limited event at some point in time.
One of the events that I would love to see happen in this town is a blue and gold day, where anybody who would ever set foot in any of the schools in the RSU 25 would be in the parade if they choose. You paint the sidewalks just along the edges. You have a band, and anybody who's not in it can watch it. And you will end up filling up suppers in all the churches. You will end up selling stuff for every sports team. And it would just be a Bucksport wonderful day. And it would bring in the surrounding towns because they support the schools as much as anybody else. And there's a natural affinity in that group. It's true it would be in the summer, but that's when you're going to get those people who live in East Aardvark, Nova Scotia, for Pete's sake. The people who subscribe to my paper in Bismarck, North Dakota. they'd make a trip here for that.
And I'll provide some updates. So Bucksport was recognized as Town of the Year through the 92.9 The Ticket Tournament. This Friday they'll be broadcasting, the details are now finalized, they'll be broadcasting from the Foster CPA parking lot. They've broadcast the last 2 times by the marina, but they want to be somewhere where they can be in the center of downtown to get the businesses and the folks shopping. So they're going to be in that, which is right across the street from the ice cream parlor. A couple of contests that the town manager has thought of that we're going to run with. And these are going to go out first thing tomorrow. Anyone who purchases anything from a Bucksport business, starting Tuesday through the time we go on the air on Friday, will be entered into a drawing. We're going to have prizes. Simply all they have to do is bring a receipt from the egg store or the ice cream parlor or wherever. Their name will go in for a drawing, and we'll draw some gift cards for that. Also, we're going to ask people, I got to create a site really quickly, but we're going to ask people to send in their favorite photos of Bucksport, and we'll also have prizes drawn for that as well. The town manager has some gift cards left over from the, just a few gift cards left over from the program, the Pay It Forward program, so that's where funds will be for those prizes. So we thought that would be fun to celebrate Bucksport, so really like the public to come out and celebrate, be part of the day's events, shop local, be with the radio. So that's one thing.
When is this?
That's this Friday from 4 to 6. I can't remember the address. I believe it's 78 Main Street, Foster CPA, right across the street from the Dairy Port. Also, Simply Soul Boutique opened this weekend on Saturday. It's owned by Katie Libby, a Bucksport alumna. It's right next to the Talking Shop and the ice cream parlor. It's on the corner where the local variety used to be. From what I've heard, and I was out of town, I heard she had a great first day. She started as an online business. My daughters and wife supported her, and now she's in brick and mortar as well. So it's a great addition to Main Street, and I think there's a lot of synergies between what Portical has as well. So add some more variety to our Main Street. Oh boy, there was one other thing that I was going to update you on, and I apologize. The Main Street walls. Main Street walls. We received one bid. A 5th wall has been added. My apologies, I missed it originally. It was 165 Main Street. It's down by Seaboard Federal Credit Union. The wall in front of the Stubborn Cow Glass, the one on the corner of Mill, the corner of Bridge, and the corner of Pine are all 5 of those are being replaced, and we are going to come in under budget. We got a grant, $275 from the state, $275 from the town, but it came in under the $550,000. So that's happening as well.
Okay. I had one question.
Go ahead, Joe, sorry.
And I apologize, I don't know all the details of this, but a couple weeks ago, Jane LaFleur from Heart and Soul brought a couple journalists to town who are writing articles on community development, and she wanted them to come to Bucksport. And they spent a couple days talking with quite a few people from various walks here in Bucksport, and hopefully they'll be writing an article. I don't know what their medium is. I'm not sure.
It's the Atlantic.
The Atlantic. And they've written a book, Jim Fallows. Jim Fallows,
yes.
His wife? Yeah, and they've written a book in 5 different towns in the United States. But they write for the Atlantic. Their publicity on these towns has been, where they've written about, has really helped the towns that they wrote about. I do know that much.
And I believe they've had HBO documentaries on some of the ones
Yes.
they've written about as well.
Yes, yes. Eastport happened to have been one of the 5 towns that they did the program on and the book on, which is where I was for 13 years before I came here.
Catherine?
Another question. Are we doing anything to attract a diner or a coffee shop or something where people can get good food right on Main Street. I know we have Warren, we have other places, but there really, to me, there's not enough places. And we have some, you know, what looks like promising places that could be better used, but I know they're already occupied, so that, you know. But is there any thought on that? Like, how do we attract good food places?
Well, that requires empty storefronts. And right now, the only empty storefront we have is down by Tozer's Market, which is just outside the downtown. It's still in the downtown, but it's further away from all the action. And it's not that I don't agree with you. Quite a few of the business owners who own building space do not want to rent out to food, is part of the issue. And the other part is there's no open space right now. Verona Wine and Design, you know, they took a space and were very creative and utilized an outdoor patio. The Friars have maximized what they have as well. But when you're looking for empty space on Main Street or the heart of Main Street or even on the waterfront, there's every building now is full, which is a great problem. But yes, I mean, you could utilize more coffee shops or diners. We need more buildings.
Reverend York?
The Stubborn Cow, right? Is anyone kind of keeping track of, I know it's for sale, but do we have any idea what we're doing on our end as a town to maybe creatively think of recruiting some business or whatever? It would seem to me that, I mean, that's on Main Street, and I don't know what should go in there. I don't have any ideas, but, you know, it would seem that, you know, we need to pay attention when a space like that does open. You know, possibly there's something that would be of interest. I mean, we're talking about signage, we're talking about trying to get people here, we're talking about television cameras showing up, but we need to, you know, there are long lines into Warren's, or there are long lines into, you know, the Friars and other places. So it would seem to me, I would hope that, and I don't know if it's this committee or the council or who would be paying attention to this, or perhaps it's the administration, but what do we do to attract businesses into town?
That building right now is still being utilized by the current business owner, and you know, in that instance, it's a private entity, and my office can help with the marketing of that at their request. And if someone comes in and says, "I'm looking for a spot," as in any place that becomes available, I recommend it. The current owner lives downstairs in that building as well. I don't know what the urgency is. I don't know what the sale price is. But there have been businesses and buildings selling in town with same use. The Bucksport Motor Inn has recently sold. It's staying a Motor Inn. Jerry's Hardware has recently sold. It's staying a hardware store. Family Dollar has expanded into the last empty space that separated them and U.S. Cellular. So when it comes to private business, I'm here to help rent, help them look for a buyer, someone that's looking for land. And I'll tell you that right now, the interest is at the highest it's been for land, including, I had 4 inquiries on that lot. I've had 3 inquiries on the industrial park. So Bucksport's being talked about. People are coming. When the ship was in town, I think it'd be more than hard-pressed to find any event until you go back to the 70s or 80s that brought more people than what that ship brought into this town. Every business on Main Street that was open benefited from their visit. And this cruise ship, which is different from the cruise ships that come in for weather purposes only, they have 3 buses that come. The buses arrive at 8 in the morning when hardly any businesses are open in this town. They take a half-day trip to the fort, another bus is a half-day trip to Bar Harbor, and then there's one bus that is a full-day trip to Bar Harbor. The two half-day people, and I've been here to witness this myself, shop and eat locally, and they can eat right on that ship, but they complain about $13 hamburgers, so I know they're eating locally. So these cruise ships, even though you don't see them in the waves of people, they are starting to contribute more than they have in the past as well. So we are making strides. We do have to continue with our infrastructure. A new waterfront committee has been aligned. Some of that's going to move its way up to Main Street as well to make sure that we are up with the times, making sure that we are friendly. We used to have a sign on Verona Island that said, for the best view of the new bridge and the fort, take a left at the light. It didn't help. The marketing folks all said, take it down. So we're working on new signage for the town. But again, with new signage, if we do something today and tomorrow we have a new logo or a new tagline, we're simply throwing away good monies at this point. It's not that we have the signs right now, and we're doing a lot of the marketing and what we can, but it's all coming. It's just like this lot. We're not going to jump at the first thing. It's not a successful way of running a business. We're also not going to dallygag and let it go on for years and years and years. It's coming and it's moving along, and with this committee's help, we'll continue to move forward. You had something and you then bypassed.
Yeah, only a quick question. One I brought up before, not maybe at the meeting. Oh, speak up.
Yeah.
I missed that. I got it now. Okay. So the power plant down here is the big blue building, right? And I had mentioned to Rich one time about getting a grant for painting whales or something, sailboat, anything besides looking at that blue. Because when you come across the bridge over here, people look right down, you know. And to me, you need to have something down there that would be attracting, you know. So
Very
that,
visible from the observatory.
yeah,
It's right there.
yeah, it's right there. So I don't know.
I haven't acted on that, and I think that would be a good project for Main Street Bucksport. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to make a single Main Street Bucksport meeting since Mary's come on board, but I think some assistance and guidance with community foundation grants through Maine Community Foundation, because the last mural just went on the Alamo Theater. It seems to me that that would be a good community project that if Main Street Bucksport thought that they could take on, and I can help with the introductions of who owns the power plant. But I don't disagree with you, because for the longest time we couldn't get yachts or very good-looking ships in here, because the first thing they would see is a mill. And what we've been told is they turn right around and head out. And this year, I don't know if everyone's noticed, but we've had the most yachts since I've been here. We've had 4 yachts this year. We've had a catamaran that was supposed to be here for a month that's been here all summer. The ship, cruise ships, day travelers, Bangor was overfull. We actually have their carryover in people. Our marina has been full, and the business that they've brought, not only to the marina but to the local businesses, has been big this year as well. So I don't disagree with you. It needs to happen. It's something where I need to reach out to Mary to see if the board of Main Street Bucksport can help and do with their expertise in getting those art-funded grants. They've done it twice. The one on down to the marina on the wall of Camden National Bank, and now the one on the Alamo.
Could I make a suggestion that when you assemble a committee to decide on what kind of murals, I think that is critical to have, I think that we should have artists on there and people who really have an art background to make those decisions. I mean, there are some murals around the world that are absolutely fantastic, and it's just eye-stopping. And then others that are, So I think that decision is really important too. So let's be smart about picking good consultants or something.
And we could figure out how Main Street Bucksport's done it. To be honest, I wasn't.
There was a committee.
There was a
Both
committee,
times.
yeah. So Yeah, that's Main Street Bucksport, and they do. They have a very active board. Their executive director, I believe, is the one who applies for all the grants. Brooke, I believe, was the one who wrote both grants, and with the assistance of John, because I know John Paul was on Maine Community Foundation. So they're very active, and that's part of their mission as well. So not that it's not part of mine. I think it's a good collaboration between the groups to do that, and I can be that bridge that connects them together.
Can that be put in the minutes that you're gonna be the bridge?
Thanks, man.
So, Rich, not to prolong everything, but this did come up at the last Main Street Board meeting, but I understand the town has a pretty good pile of money that they got out of the COVID stuff, and it's kind of a wild card from what I understand, and isn't really appropriated yet.
No, there isn't.
So I just think that economic development should talk about that, especially if the town's looking for ideas. And that could serve lots of this here. And there was an observation at Sue's Meet the Town with Reverend York that, you know, she sort of maybe, you know, brought that up a little bit.
So the response was the nearly $500,000 that the town's going to receive from ARP, the American Rescue Plan. And if I remember from the last July town council meeting, I believe that's going to be open for discussion at this town council meeting, because there are parameters on what it can be used for.
But it's pretty broad from what I understand.
Yeah, that part I haven't read into that. There's a lot of grants through a lot of EDAs, and I'm looking into some of that funding for economic development as well, but I have to partner up with an agency. But yeah, that would be...
I think again, I wasn't there, I'm only passing along secondhand, but I think what Sue said, that much of that money can be earmarked for, quote, economic development. Which means that this committee ought to jump in, and the public as well, I would think.
Well, that's what the mission of this committee is that the funding that comes through, like TIF and any other type of funding like that. So that's, and we can do that.
Just a question. The county has a similar pot of money. I think it's bigger than the $500 million. And they're gonna be making some decisions over the next 30 days. Has the town approached them for anything out of that?
I know I took part in the survey that they sent out, and they've already said how they're spending it. If we're on the same, you're talking about for Hancock County Commissioners?
The money from the feds,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was over $500,000. And they said in the last Ellsworth America, they were still making decisions and approaching not-for-profits. So I don't know whether...
Yeah, I haven't heard that one, but that's a good tip. We'll take that under advisement.
Yeah, I would check. I know they sent out a survey. There were 7 different categories that they listed where the money could be spent, and I believe the survey results were all the counties were listed. I would misquote it, but the results are in on what the survey suggested that the commissioners use the money for. And it very well be what Dawn had said, but I've seen a lot.
It has to go to a not-for-profit or underserved populations. Those are 2 big categories. There are others. Those are the 2 big ones.
Yeah, Sue did mention those the other night, and she asked for people to put in requests. Not that they would all could be met, but they wanted, people to submit for different things.
For the county or for the town one?
This was the town one.
Town, yeah.
This was the town one. That's what Ron had said.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a senior citizen that was having difficulty, if I remember correctly.
Yes, that's correct,
And
yeah.
wanted to get some help
Yes.
with her home.
She asked her, right, and she asked her to submit, and she said actually they were looking for whatever submissions people put them in, because they wanted to find good places for that money to go.
Reverend York?
I know I mentioned Stubborn Cow, but there are a couple of other business or properties that I have a concern about. On Franklin Street, I don't know who owns the Masonic Temple. Is that still owned by the Masons?
It is.
Well, you know, again, it would seem to me, you know, we need to be thinking, since it's in the business district, you know, it's not, because after you leave the Congo church, you
That side of the road is not the downtown district. That's the village district. Now, that property can be grandfathered in for light use.
a fraternity or some kind of thing.
Meeting place. I'm trying to think of what the legal word is for that.
I'm just wondering, you know, again, who's on this stuff? And the other concern of a building, and I know it's on the other side of the street, but the old Methodist church someday is going to collapse. And, you know, I have a concern, you know, I know I'm not abutting the property, but, you know, we're close enough to feel the effects. You know, I don't know, the anecdotal stuff I got was that somebody from Canada bought it for the clock, and, you know, it's going to collapse. And then the town's going to have a mess here, you know, to deal with. So I don't know whose responsibility it is in town government, but, you know, I just want to address this, because someday we're going to hear a sonic boom go off, and we're going to know, you know, it's gone. I mean, that's one of the reasons they relocated, was because of the lack of safety, or the safety issues in that building. So those are two properties that I'm looking at every day from the Congregational Church perspective and saying, all right, so what's going to happen? All right, I know the Department of Safety parks over there, and I read the agreement tonight in the notes and all of that, but I mean, we got to have a vision for, you know, and I don't know who reaches out to the Masons or who reaches out to the Canadian owner, but something has to be done, because it's a public safety issue with the old Methodist church at this point, as I see it.
Well, one might think that it's still maybe registered here in town as the church when it was sold. Maybe there's a tax bill due that we can maybe send them. Just a thought I'm having, because I'm on a butter, and you're absolutely right. Last year, somebody was cutting the grass, at least maintaining some of it. Now there's nothing happening there.
Right.
And as you go by, you can see things starting to really take hold and go the wrong direction. So
I'm dealing with the developer on that property. The issue we have right now is parking. There's no parking for that. So for the uses that they have, we have to work within the code and the government. As much as we'd like things to be done today, yesterday, tomorrow, that situation is being addressed with the developer.
oh, good.
But there's legalities that I'm dealing with this said developer on that property. And for the
If you get into a parking issue, you know, you should talk with us.
it's the town's ordinances that create the issue. It's not, the town has public parking across the street, also in your parking lot that the town owns directly outright, that we need the easement to go through your lot, and that's ours, closer to the yellow apartment building. So it's not that per se, it's just not on that lot. So when they have a plan and they want to implement that plan, and certain things in our town code says you need to provide on-site parking, that's what we have to deal with. So that either goes back to changing the code, getting the developer to understand that this is town parking, or getting the town to sell that lot to said developer. So we're in the works with that on that property. On the Masons building, we've shown it quite a bit, and when we bring it up to developers, the hardest part of that building is the fact of trying to make it ADA compliant and the cost.
Right.
The town manager has, some thoughts that she shared with the council, what she'd like to see there, especially for the benefit of the parking lot, public safety using that. The buildings are being addressed. It's not made out to the public on everything everything that gets done, just because things fall through. You set people up for success, and then all of a sudden things fall through, and then it comes crashing down. So those are very valid concerns and questions, and those are being addressed and discussed and worked with both sides.
I just mentioned in passing, the Methodist Church was not designed to be 2 stories. They built the first story, jacked it up, put another one under it. As a result, without any engineers involved,
The weight of that,
they,
yeah.
they lifted the bell up with oxen. But the sills pretty well gone all the way around under the first floor. Up in the steeple, should the owner ever decide he's taking it down or doing something, getting rid of it, it would be very nice if the town could get access to the paneled room up in the steeple where the clockworks used to be located. Because on those paneled walls are the names and signatures of all kinds of people over the past 200 years, of the people who climbed all those stairs, twisted the thing, brought the weights up, kept the clock in running order. And the panels destroyed. Can't find those anymore. It'd be very great paneling in a new museum building. I have
History.
pictures of them.
Well, if we have no other new business, the next item would be schedule next meeting.
I'd like to mention about 2 people I met on the sidewalk just the other day. I was coming from Dozier's with a cup of coffee. These 2 ladies walked up to me. You live here? I said, yes, I do. How long you lived here? Oh, about 82 years. Well, I'd like to ask you a lot of questions. Is this the end of the business area? Is there a restaurant up there further? I said, no. This is hardly even the end of it. I said, it starts, I said, at the post office and the library. That's what I figured was the town. Well, what's the population here? She went on and on and on. She says, I like it here. She came off the vessel. She's looking for a place to eat and things like that. But we had a good conversation, boy, today. We really did. I was telling her there's all kinds of out-of-state plates here because they're buying up the property. And they're paying exorbitant prices for it. Where are they going to live if they sell it? I said, I don't know. She's concerned about where the people are going to live if they sell their homes. I enjoyed it. I really did. I enjoyed it.
So,
We got Monday, September 13th or September 20th. The 6th is Labor Day, so I'd like to stay away from that if at all possible.
we do whichever, 13th or 20th.
Does anyone on the committee have one that doesn't work for them?
13th would be better for me.
I'd sort of have conflicts on both. My mother turns 95 on the 13th, and my wife turns, I won't say. Good choice.
Yeah, this is being recorded. Good choice. Will the 13th work?
Works for me.
Work 13th? 13th? Okay.
Okay.
The 13th, September 13th at 6 p.m. And I'm hoping by then I'll have an update on your EV chargers and updates on some of those buildings that you've discussed tonight. Absolutely. And Meg, we should have an answer for you, I'm hoping August 26th. I'll put a request in for the services committee meeting for that night.
Okay. If there's nothing,
Not that much.
yeah. Item 7, adjournment.
Second.
All in favor?
What is that?
All right, meeting adjourned.